still expanding my 80s horror, and today I found Monster Squad from 1987, and I think a lot of us that dwell here in the little horror sphere are fans of the classic Universal monsters. My own personal favourite is the creature from the Black Lagoon. I love the fish boy, he has my heart. And I had never seen Monster Squad before, but I know that this movie is considered a cult classic, and I want to know why, because this looks like something that I should really enjoy. We're talking Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's monster. They are all in this movie. But if you don't know anything about Monster Squad from 1987, let me quickly fill you in. A group of young kids form a club that is devoted to monsters, but soon get more than they bargained for when they realise that Dracula is in fact alive. He plans to rule the world and is seeking the help of other legendary monsters to do so. However, the kids uncover his devious plan and it is time to prepare a counterstrike. If you're new here, I go by Hordes and I talk about all things horror here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays. And I'm very aware that there is suddenly a lot more of you here. For an anxiety-riddled human being like myself, the past few days have been a little bit overwhelming, but I wanted to purposely make the point to say thank you to every single person who has decided to subscribe, who has left me comments. Know that I tried to respond to every single one. I have at least read every single comment. To everybody that liked my video that went a bit nuts, so I'm so grateful. Like, please know that it's wild, and I needed to take a second just to say thank you, because it's been quite the few days as I'm filming this. But yeah, thank you to everybody. But back to the video. As always here on my channel, when it comes to movies that I have never seen before, I am now going to go and watch Monster Squad from 1987 off camera, so that way if you too decide that you want to watch this movie, nothing will be spoiled for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie you've just watched somebody else watch from start to finish. And yeah, thank you again.
He looks adorable!
Find somebody that looks at you the way that Dracula looks at Frankenstein's monster in this movie, because that is love in its purest form.
Scooby-Doo, take note.
The Monster Squad is a movie about kids that love horror that has clearly been made by adults who were those kids that loved horror and never grew out of it, and it comes through in all of the little details in this movie. I have no idea though why this movie is a 15 rated here in the UK. Like, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a 12 rated here in the UK, and I honestly think that you could get away with saying Monster Squad nowadays would also be a 12 rating, because besides some swearing in this, I have no idea why it's a 15 rated. I want to start by talking about the practical effects, because I really like the practical effects in this movie, and I am going to harp on about practical effects in horror movies because I love practical effects. I will always pick a practical effect over a digital effect every day, and there is one particular sequence in this movie that I want to talk about, and that is the transformation sequence of the Wolfman in the phone booth, because that is so well done. When you see him go from human to partial wolf to full wolf, it is, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I also really like everybody's full prosthetic makeup in this movie. Like, they are 100% identifiable as who you know them as. You can't mix anybody up, because the Mummy looks like the classic version of the Mummy. Frankenstein's monster, classic version of Frankenstein's monster. Gillman, aka the creature from the Black Lagoon, is the same creature from the Black Lagoon, so on and so forth. Like, Dracula I want to talk about, because he is this like great mix of an actual menace and being like really suave and charming, which you 100% expect from Dracula. And then the next thing you know, he is very talented at throwing dynamite, which I would never have expected. I also think it was a really good decision to include his brides in this. You get all three of them. They have their own little roles to play, particularly in the, I want to say like end 15, 20 minutes. So I really appreciate that they were also involved in this, because obviously it mentions the whole ancestry with Van Helsing, and if you know anything about that, the brides are in that story, so it's a nice little like throwback for people that love horror and would know why they were there or who they are to begin with.
Who are these people?
I want to mention though Frankenstein's monster, because he is adorable and I love him so much. Like the scene in the middle of the montage when he is playing dress up with Phoebe, and then what happens at the very end, it's a heartstring puller what happens with him, and I love him so much. Like, he became my favourite in this movie. He's my second favourite classic monster anyway. So I was always gonna have a soft spot for Frankenstein's monster. I would have liked more Gillman / Creature from the Black Lagoon, but that's my bias, so I'm always gonna want more of my fish boy. The kid actors are really good in this. They are, as characters, all really into classic horror monsters, and you know when things start going down in this movie that you are in good hands plot-wise, because they have the knowledge there. And the adults are off doing whatever the adults are gonna do. Let's be honest, the adults would just be a hindrance in this, because find me a horror movie where the adults actually listened to what is going on from the kids, because they don't. They never do. The adults are like, oh, we know better, just ignore the kids, and then something goes wrong. It's such a trope in horror at this point. But I have to just give a quick shout out to a scene, and if you know, you know. I have no idea how Horace, one of the kids from the Monster Squad, resisted the urge to not shoot his bullies, because how many of us would have been like, oops, my finger slipped, and now the person that has bullied me relentlessly for years is now missing a toe.
Did you try to sew it back on?
Is it the most unique plot? No, but then how many of us can name other movies where you have unnamed villain is looking for unnamed object because they want to take over the world for their own selfish motivations? Like, there are so many in various iterations out there, but the selling point for the Monster Squad is those classic monsters, and it is always going to be the selling point for this movie, because every single year more people discover these classic monsters, whether that be through the movies, through friends, through family, through haunt events at theme parks. There's always going to be people discovering Frankenstein's monster, the classic mummy, Dracula in some form, and I am always gonna want to watch something that is Frankenstein based, because I have such a love for Frankenstein's monster. I have to use Frankenstein as my example here because my boy Gillman, unfortunately, has not had any kind of movie or TV show since the original trilogy in the 50s, because his remake in 2007 got cancelled, and then they went and cancelled the Dark Universe that they were going to make. So thanks Universal. Can I have my boy back please? I'd like some more Gillman, because that's my boy. I have one issue though, and while somebody else wouldn't find this an issue, it is for me, and it is regardless of what movie that it is. There is, in the beginning, a homophobic slur that gets used multiple times as an insult, and while I get that this was the 80s and these are kids saying these insults, it just doesn't make it any less jarring to hear that now being used as an insult. I think, had I seen Monster Squad when I was younger, say 10 to 12 years old, like, younger Hordes would have defended this movie in the same way that I defend the movie Dragonheart, and that is fiercely and to the death. And it doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it as an adult. I just think because I was a kid that loved horror and these are kids that loved horror, I would have then had the nostalgia to link with this movie. But I still enjoyed it as an adult. So in the end, I am actually going to give Monster Squad from 1987 a 4 out of 5 stars, because I'm going to make a bold statement, and that is, if you love classic Universal monsters and you haven't seen The Monster Squad, please go and watch this movie, because this is the movie for spooky kids that became spooky adults. It's the only way I can describe this movie. So go and stream it, go and rent it, borrow a DVD, just do what you need to do to watch this movie if, like me, you have this like ingrained love for these monsters. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching The Monster Squad from 1987. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comment section down below. If you would like to know every single horror movie that I watch, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube, you can find me over on Letterboxd and on Instagram at HordesOfHorror, and I will leave them both linked in the description bar down below. And I will be back on Monday with another brand new solo movie review. This time, it's a body horror from 2006, which has been on my radar for so long that I am finally getting round to. So until next time, bye.